All right, so last night I watched the newest Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man No Way Home, and it's something. It's definitely something. So I'm gonna do a quick spoiler-free stuff, and then I'm gonna go into spoilers. So you've been warned. Let's get into it. Welcome to the newest episode of SDW.
Super Dario World!
So, like I said, I was kind of torn about how I was going to do this because I usually do things live, but I was worried, man, if I'm in the middle of the stream and then all of a sudden, somebody pops in, I'm already in the spoiler arena and somebody just, pops in randomly and things get spoiled. I don't know why the hell that happened, but if something suddenly gets spoiled for somebody else, I'm going to feel like a total dick, and I don't want to do that to somebody because I hate spoilers. So I decided, all right, I'm going to have to pre-record this one, but yeah. Heads up, there's 1,000,001 spoilers for this movie, so you should definitely watch it quickly. But before I get into that, and since I already mentioned it, let me just give you a quick reminder that any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Super Dario World on YouTube and on Twitch, streaming Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, usually at 10 a.m.-ish. Or if you want to send me something privately, you can always do that on Instagram at Super Dario World and at Dario SDW. So, now that's out of the way, let's get into this, because there's quite a few things that I would like to discuss when talking about this movie. So, spoiler free. Right now, we're doing spoiler free. Moving on, we're gonna get into spoilers. So, spoiler free. The movie is phenomenal. It's fantastic. I thought it's extremely funny. It's a lot of fun. It's probably the most fun I've had in the movie theater in a very long time. They put a lot of money into it, and you can tell that every penny is on the screen. And it's well written. It's a lot of fun. And the most important thing about this movie is that for a Spider-Man movie, it actually feels important. There's been other issues with the other two Spider-Man movies that they don't really feel important. They don't feel like they're part of the MCU. This one does feel extremely important. And this goes back to something that I talked about a few podcasts before, like Disney, Marvel. Bet on Spider-Man. Put your money on Spider-Man. Spider-Man is the guy. He should be the guy. I know you don't have the rights for Spider-Man. You give Sony as much money as they want, but Spider-Man definitely needs to be the guy because his movies are fantastic. It's honestly not the movies. The character is fantastic, and he can fit in with anybody. You can use him for anything. Spider-Man should be the guy for the MCU, and this movie kind of proves it. And so, easy. I usually do this. Is it worth your money? Yes. It's definitely worth your money. It's definitely worth your time. It's a well-made movie. It's not the best movie ever, but it's extremely well-made. It's a lot of fun. It has fan service galore, which, I mean, who doesn't want fan service? Who doesn't want some fan service? But yeah, like I said, I'm just keeping things spoiler-free. So quick little breakdown here. What is the movie about? So Peter Parker is at the end of Far From Home. He gets outed as Spider-Man, and so this is him dealing with the consequences of becoming the most famous person in the world. And so he goes to visit Dr. Stephen Strange, and he asks him, hey, could you make people forget that I'm Spider-Man? And because of him being kind of like a weirdo dumbass, he ends up accidentally pulling in people from other dimensions, and now he has to deal with that. So that's the premise of the movie. Like I said, I'm not going to go into too many spoilers right now, but the good things about the movie, it's very funny. But Spider-Man's usually, it's funny. It's lighthearted, but it feels like it doesn't feel like a kid movie. That's I guess that's the best way to say it, because I have a lot of issue with the Marvel stuff because it feels like it's movies for little kids, and it's like, dude, you have fans who are adults. Give us adult stuff that could still be funny. Spider-Man travels that thing really well, and the way that they do this with Spider-Man is that the movie has a lot of heart, and I mean a buttload of heart. And in fact, it might have too much heart, but honestly, too much heart's not a bad thing. But yeah, so it handles that very well by, all right, we're gonna do a lot of silly Spider-Man stuff because Spider-Man is still a teenager, he's still very young, but it's also going to have a buttload of consequences, which your hero's gonna make stupid decisions. There's gonna be consequences for it, and then also it's gonna have a lot of heart. Now, I don't want to get too deep into what that means. Just keeping it simple, spoiler free, extremely well acted movie, well written. There's a few, let's say, plot holes here and there. Nothing too big, nothing unforgivable. There's kind of like a middle part there that's a little bit slower than the rest, but it's fine. The pacing overall is fine. The interaction between the characters is fantastic. Like I said, this movie proves that Marvel, Disney, just give Sony all the money that they want. Keep Spider-Man. Make sure you have in writing that Spider-Man will be the centerpiece of your universe, because you need him. The MCU needs Spider-Man, okay? I've always said this. Spider-Man is the crown jewel of the Marvel universe. He should be the crown jewel of the MCU. And so, all right, so like I said, worth your money, fun, enjoyable, good for the whole family, even though they drop a few curse words for there, here and there. So, all right, I highly recommend the movie. Highly enjoyable, probably the best. All right, so if I'm going to rank the MCU movies, and I know it's not fair because I just watched the movie and I'm still a little high on it, but I think Infinity War is still a little bit better. This might be number 2. Like for me, right behind Infinity War. It's right there. And it's really difficult because okay, so Infinity War was the buildup of something that took decades. Here is they built up something out of mishmash parts. It was phenomenal. They took parts from other franchises and they created something that's fantastic. So I'm torn, but I think just because what they did with Infinity War was slightly better planned, let's say. It's slightly cleaner in a way. And also because, I'm a villain guy and you have like the Thanos. Infinity War is basically a movie about Thanos. So I think Infinity War, I need to watch them again, both of them, and see like now with like a critical eye. And I'll see, but right now I think it's Infinity War number 1, Spider-Man No Way Home number 2. So that's spoiler-free stuff. I highly recommend it. Watch it. Now I'm going into spoilers, and I'm not going to spoil everything for you. Don't worry about it. I'm just going to mention a few things that I really liked about the movie that are spoilers. So, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. We're entering spoiler arena in 1, 2, 3. Okay, so the best part about this movie, obviously, is the appearance of 3 Spider-Mans. If one Spider-Man is great, 3 Spider-Mans is even better. And the writing for them was phenomenal. The scenes where they're all 3 there at the same time are hysterical and full of heart. Now, it's very interesting watching the 3 Spider-Mans there at the same time because they feel like they're different characters, definitely, even though they're the same character. But to me, I was very impressed because I love Tom Holland. Tom Holland is a fantastic actor, but you can clearly tell that out of the 3, Andrew Garfield is the best actor by far. That dude, like, it's funny. This movie was kind of like a wrap up of the Andrew Garfield story, because you remember the Tobey Maguire trilogy kind of wrapped up nicely. The ending sucked. The final arc that they had for Tobey Maguire, the whole fighting Venom and Sandman kind of sucked. Oh, and the Hobgoblin, it kind of sucked. The movie was terrible, but it wrapped up the story in a neat little bow. The Andrew Garfield story, however, kind of left us in Peter's darkest point. So this movie actually, interestingly, kind of wraps up Andrew Garfield's story with now with a nice little bow. It gives us closure for that particular character, and I loved it because you could see Andrew Garfield's coming in there, and he's still torn, he's still hurt, he's still hurting from the loss of Gwen Stacy, and so he comes there with his heart in his hand, and it's phenomenal. It's hysterical for certain things how they handle them because the dude's really funny. Again, the character's super funny. But the emotional part, the scene where he's trying to go, do a heart-to-heart with the current Peter Parker, who is currently in his darkest point, in his, deepest, lowest point, is phenomenal. And so I like how so we're first off, we're giving you a look at what happened to the original guy. We're wrapping up the story that was never really finished for the second guy, who's probably the best actor of the 3. And strangely enough, this third movie for Tom Holland is actually his origin story. It's really weird because this is like the last movie of a trilogy, but this is his actual origin story. They leave us with a Spider-Man who's the Spider-Man that we know. Like, I've talked about this before. This Spider-Man is an anomaly. The Tom Holland Spider-Man is an anomaly because everybody knows who he is. And I don't mean just like the public. In this movie, the public knows who he is. But in the movies before, like Tony Stark knew who he was. We don't really know the issue with Uncle Ben. We don't even know if he has an Uncle Ben. It's only just been his Aunt May. There's been a lot of really different things about this particular Peter Parker. He doesn't really have financial issues. And Spider-Man is supposed to, a few things. He's supposed to suffer a tragic loss. He's supposed to be poor. And so nobody's supposed to know his identity. And it's in this movie, we kind of end up with that Spider-Man. So this is his actual origin story. This is the movie that first off sets him up as the hero, like he decides what the type of hero he wants to be, and he learns to value his identity, like his secret identity more than anything else. And also he's poor. So I thought that was fantastic. It's a switcheroo. Usually the origin story is the first movie, but since we never got an origin story for Spider-Man, they concluded this particular one, and this one is his origin story. I loved it. I loved every second of it in that particular thing. Like I said, there's fan service galore everywhere. The villains that they brought in are fantastic because they have fantastic actors. Like Doc Ock, freaking Alfred Molina, he gave it all. He doesn't really feel like he's that old, but it's almost 20 years later from Spider-Man 2. Norman Osborn coming in there, and he's still like it. It's interesting. There's issues with the plot. Of course, there's issues with the plot. Now, all right, so let's get into the plot. Because I went straight to the end. Because I just loved the ending. I thought the ending, the way that they wrap things up was fantastic. Because now Tom Holland actually gets to be the normal Peter Parker. But he had to get there the really hard way. And I think, well, it's Aunt May. I don't think she's ever died. I don't remember a story where Aunt May's ever died. But here, she kind of had to eat it. And that's his new origin, this particular Spider-Man's origin story. So, let me see. All right, so the villains. Let's talk about the villains. It's always a concern when there's more than one villain in a movie. Sometimes you're like, there's too many cooks in there. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. I don't know. The thing that makes this movie work with so many villains is that first off, there's no grand villain. There's no like, okay, one bad guy has this big, massive plan. It's just a bunch of guys who are troublemakers and are complications. And it's a complication that Peter needs to solve. Unfortunately, he decides to solve them in the most idiotic way, but he has to pay the consequences for it. So Peter pays the consequences for having a trusting heart and also for being kind of a dumbass. Now, this is the thing that really annoys me. All right, so story-wise, Peter Parker wants everybody to forget that he's Spider-Man, but in the middle, so he goes to Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange, while he's making a spell, Peter asks him to change the spell because I don't want MJ to forget. I don't want my aunt to forget. And so as he's doing that, the spell kind of gets a little bit out of control, and that leads to other beings from other worlds to come into our world. And so because they know who Peter Parker is, and so they come here. The ones who show up in our world so the ones that show up are Reptile, Dr. Connors. Is he Reptile? I think I'm confusing his name. Lizard Man? I think it's Lizard Man. That's Dr. Connors. Electro those two are from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Then you have Doc Ock, Sandman, and the Green Goblin. So I think it's those five. Am I missing somebody? No, I think it's those five. And afterwards we get like a little extra thing of Venom in there in the like the secret scenes or whatever. But to me, again, that's a kind of a plot hole because Tom Hardy's Venom does not know that Peter Parker's Spider-Man. He doesn't really know about Spider-Man, but whatever. I guess that doesn't matter. It was just like a fun little tidbit that they added at the end. Anyway, so you bring these five guys there, and for some reason, well, you get to see them all before they died. So I was really confused as to why is Doc Ock so angry? Like, at the end, I remember the end of Spider-Man 2. Doc Ock is the one who destroys his machine to save New York City. He has like this moment, this epiphany where like, oh no, I shouldn't be doing this. And so I was really surprised to see him so angry. Now, afterwards they do explain it. So these people get sent to Tom Holland's world, Tom Holland's universe, before they die or before they, they have their massive transformation or whatever. So you get the Green Goblin before he goes completely batshit insane. So he's still kind of Norman Osborn. You get Doc Ock that comes before before he has this epiphany of like, oh no, and kind of like gets control of his own mind again. You get Electro right before he dies, and the other two, it's not exactly clear. Sandman and Lizard Man, is not exactly clear when they come over, but I mean they do come over. So, and they're still bad. They're still the bad guys. And so Tom Holland has it in his head like, well, because of Aunt May, that all right, I gotta save these dudes because they're gonna die the minute that I send them back. And like normal people would have been like, well, that sounds a lot like something that's not my problem. But Peter Parker, big heart, he's like, all right, okay, I'm going to try to save them. Because he thinks he can, because he has the technology. And there's a big thing there about, all right, I have them, they're under control. I'm having a conversation with Norman Osborn because Norman Osborn is still kind of like half there. And so maybe I can save these guys. Maybe I could actually help other universes. I'm not going to give up on anybody just throw them out in the dirt like garbage. No, I'm going to try to save lives because that's who he is. That's who Spider-Man is. The issue here that I've had is why would you just, release them? And I get it. It's because he's kind of a dumbass and he decides to trust them and he thinks he has them he has control because he has a device that could just send them all back whenever he would need them. He needed to. So I get it. I understand it. It just seems really stupid to me. Fortunately here, stupid decisions, massive consequence. And that's how you have to do it. Like if a character does something stupid, the consequence has to be equal or greater to the stupidity of your decision. And his decision to try to save him ends up being like causing the death of Aunt May, which by the way was a massive shocker to me because I guess first off, she'd never really been killed in a movie I don't even remember a storyline where Aunt May dies. Maybe just because of old age, but I don't remember one off the top of my head. And the most important thing, they kind of trick you in the movie. I love the way they handled it because first she gets hit by the Green Goblin's jet or whatever. I forget the speeder. No, it's not a speeder. The hoverboard. She gets hit by the hoverboard, and afterwards she's kind of moving around. And I'm like, this is fucking bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. Like they said, they did an homage to the original Spider-Man movie with the hoverboard appearing behind in the glass, and I'm like, this is fantastic. Are they gonna do it? And they're like, oh man, they pussed out at the end. This is stupid. And then she actually fucking dies. She actually drops with great power comes great responsibility. She said it in the worst way possible. I think like, with great power there must come great responsibility. No. Why change the line? Just keep the line. With great power comes great responsibility. Why make it any different? Whatever. Doesn't matter. And so at that moment I'm like, oh shit, they actually went there. And again, here's what we're talking about the movie. Buttload of heart, consequences, darkest point we've seen this Tom Holland be, this particular Spider-Man be. This is the lowest probably I've ever seen a Spider-Man be. And so immediately after that, there's the light at the end of there's like a light shining down. Because the audience is like, oh shit, we just lost Aunt May. What the hell is gonna happen? This is extremely bad. And then we're introduced to the two other Peter Parkers. And the chemistry between everybody was fantastic. Like I said, you get to see the original, the Tobey Maguire Peter Parker. And he's kind of like, he's like an older guy. He's calmer. You can see him. He still has like ghosts of his past because, he's been through a lot of stuff. We know what he's been through. But he seems happy. He seems good. And you're like, man, good for that guy. And we actually see him not in wearing the Spider-Man suit. We see him wearing normal clothes, which could be a coincidence, could be, or it could be that, no, I'm comfortable as Peter Parker. Spider-Man is just something that I do. So, it could be like a decision or something from the creator, or it could be just coincidental, who knows. But I love seeing Tobey Maguire back there again. I like that Spider-Man. I like that Peter. I always said that he's my favorite Peter Parker. Then you get the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, who, again, he's right in the middle of it. He's still dealing from loss. He's still mourning the loss of Gwen Stacy. The original Tobey Maguire, he lost Uncle Ben. He lost his best friend, but he's moved on. Clearly, it's all right. It's a part of him, but it's no longer something that causes him a great deal of immediate pain. For Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker, it's still an immediate source of pain. He's still suffering it. He still probably has nightmares about it in that particular moment, and he still regrets it. And so it's a very different experience. But the interactions are hysterical, and they're all Peter Parker enough that they say the same things, but they are their own unique form of Peter Parker in the way that they see the world, that they handle things. Tobey Maguire says a lot without actually saying it. It's very interesting. Like he does more like looks. Andrew Garfield is still like the talker, same as Tom Holland. Tom Holland is the talkiest of the talkists. It's like he says the most amount of words, I think. Well, obviously because it's his movie, but when they're together, it's an interesting dynamic, and I truly enjoyed it. Like I said, it's really hard to get sometimes characters to mesh well together, actors to mesh well together. Here, everybody worked out, and so we have Peter Parker. We have Tom Holland, Peter Parker, who is in the deepest, darkest part of his life at this point. And the two people who are there to try to bring him out of the light are the two people who know his heart the best, probably. And so Andrew Garfield goes there and he shares the story of Gwen Stacy. And again, this scene is all heart. It's all. I can't tell you how many people were crying in the movie theater with Andrew Garfield, expressing his loss for Gwen Stacy and how he's no longer pulling his punch. It's fantastic. Like I said, that this movie is heart up the wazoo. And it's because it works because people like Spider-Man. They love Spider-Man. And so here it's Peter angry. Tom Holland angry. He wants to kill the Green Goblin because he just killed his aunt. And he hates himself because he knows it was his decision. It was a stupid decision. And so he's like, all right, fuck everything. I'm just going to go and I'm going to kill him. I don't care about anything. I don't care anymore. And in come the two Spider-Mans to save him from himself. So, it's really weird because there's no big villain here. There's no big grand scheme or plan. It's kind of like Spider-Man's coming in to save Spider-Man from himself and his world from... it's saving Spider-Man from himself, basically. From the darkness. Because the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man... Tobey Maguire knows very well how dark he can go, right? Like he very specifically knows that. He went into the Black Spider-Man, and that's really weird. And he doesn't want this for Tom. He doesn't want him to go that way, and he doesn't want him to basically regret the loss of the life, because it's it helps. This is origin story. It helped him become the person that he's going to eventually become, right? So he wants to make sure that he basically retains the kindness in his heart, that he doesn't go dark, he doesn't go evil, he doesn't go like a killer. He wants him to still be, let's say, pure in a way. Pure feels like a good enough word. He doesn't want to have the blood on his hands that Tobey Maguire feels that he has. And in Andrew Garfield, again, he just completely relates because he's still suffering from the loss of Gwen Stacy. And so, like I said, a lot of heart. That's probably my favorite scene in the entire movie. Afterwards, when they make their plan and they're hanging out to decide, okay, this is how we're gonna. By the way, the one thing, the thing that made this feel most like an actual Spider-Man movie is Jonah Jameson in there. Like that, getting Jonah Jameson in there is completely changes the thing. Like, Spider-Man is a menace. We need to get this menace. So it's a nice little turn that I loved. I extremely loved them getting Jonah Jameson in there. He's probably my favorite addition there to this particular Tom Holland universe, because now he's like a YouTuber who ends up being like a news guy instead of being the reporter, the Daily Bugle, like the newspaper guy. They changed things up. I liked it. They adapted it. And he's not from another universe. He's from this universe, so he's there to stay. So like I said, that's probably my favorite addition that they should be continuing. Anyway. So that leads to the big fight against, like the big baddies, and like, all right, so we're going to take all, it's 3 Spider-Mans against 5 technically, although not really. And oh, by the way, there's a fight between Spider-Man and Doctor Strange that's phenomenal. That again, Spider-Man wins just because he's smart. And this is the beauty of Spider-Man. It's not just all skill, it's brains. And they manage this thing in this movie pretty well, because Spider-Man is a genius in his own way. He was a massive geek. He was a nerd, and here they finally start, showing that, because in the other Tom Holland movies, he's just kind of like a dumbass. But here it's like, oh, this is math. I can do math. Math is really easy. And so he beats Doctor Strange, who's using magic. He beats him using science, technically. Using math, which is phenomenal. Like I said, I that fight is fantastic because it's Spider-Man fighting really outside of his element, and it's not like a legit fight. It's more like a capture the flag type of deal, or like what's it called? We're not trying to kill each other. We're just trying to both get the same item. So that particular fight I extremely enjoyed, and it tells you the fighting level of Spider-Man. He can even beat magic if he has to. So anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, so the fight against the big bads. So the big bads face off against the three Spider-Mans, which should not be a fair fight because, it's three Spider-Mans. But these three Spider-Mans, they don't know how to work that well together. They end up kind of working, and their rapport is fantastic. They end up having like a group chat in the middle of it, which is fantastic. It's super funny. Talking about how Tobey Maguire creates his own web, how the other two feel inferior, like, oh man, I wish I could create my own web, and I run out and stuff, and then Tom Holland saying like, oh yeah, well I fought aliens in space and now on Earth, and Andrew Garfield be like, man, you guys fought aliens? I'm so lame. Like, no, you're not lame, you're amazing. So it really did feel like a brotherly dynamic there, which again goes to prove Peter Parker, Spider-Man can fit in with anybody, even with more Spider-Mans. So it ends up being a fight basically just for an object, and where they're trying it's funny because the objective here is not to defeat the villains, it's to save them. It's not a movie about like stopping the bad guy. It's about saving yourself, right? Or saving Tom Holland specifically. And so they managed to do it. He ends up in a one-on-one fight against the Green Goblin, which this was a moment that I kind of didn't like in the movie, because there's a point where they beat Lizard Man, they beat Electro, Doc Ock is on their side, and they beat Sandman. And so there's three Spider-Mans, Doc Ock, Doctor Strange shows up, and the only one left is the Green Goblin. So I was like, man, they kind of killed all the tension here. But Green Goblin shows up. They found a way to make Green Goblin cause a buttload of chaos, and so it ends up with Tom Holland fighting against the Green Goblin, actually winning the fight, and then while he's going to kill him, Tobey Maguire legitimately saves him. And here, this is the moment where Tobey Maguire says a lot, and he doesn't even say anything. It's with a look, and the look is, you're better than this. You're better than this. Or, I mean, anybody can take whatever they want off the look, but the point is, that's good acting. Because you're not saying anything, it's not too much, it's an expression just like, you're better than this. And of course, things happen, consequences happen, and it leads to this particular Tom Holland's greatest decision. By the way, I thought it was super funny that Tobey Maguire got stabbed, and you're like, oh no, my god, Tobey Maguire, he's gonna die? And then he's like, nah, I've been stabbed before, it's really painful. And you're like, yes! Go Toby, he's gonna make it. And so that leads to the decision of Tom Holland saying, all right, okay, so in order for the multiverse not to collapse because of Green Goblin, let's make everybody forget about Peter Parker. And so that's his way of saving the multiverse, right? And that's his ultimate sacrifice, because he's given up basically everything, right? He's giving up literally everybody he's ever known, in a way, because they're gonna forget him. They're gonna forget all the memories. But also in a way, it's like, you know what? I can get it back. Is it that big of a sacrifice? Not really, because he could work on getting it back eventually. So he does that, and then afterwards we see the consequences of this, and he goes to see MJ. Tom Holland goes to see MJ, and he's preparing to tell her, but he doesn't. And again, this is very interesting because he's sacrificing love, and he's sacrificing love for her happiness. It's an interesting thing that was done. At first, I was a little I was concerned, like, no, they're going to try to buy it back. They're going to try to buy it back, but he didn't. And that is on par with who Spider-Man is. Spider-Man is he's the most secretive character with his identity. I think there's like, you can count in your hand the people who Spider-Man has actually confessed his identity to, if you take away Civil War, because in Civil War he confesses it to everybody. But he doesn't really share it. He keeps it. He plays his cards very close to his vest, and because he knows that the people who he loves, he would put them in danger. And so here it's like, you know what, it's great acting by Tom Holland, because you could tell that he's torn. It's like, I want to have you, I love you, I want you to be with me, but in order to save you from me and all the chaos that comes with me, I'm gonna let you go. So, to me, that was extremely well handled. It was very well handled. It again, consequences. You make stupid decisions, the hero has to face consequences, but he learned stuff. He came out on the other side. He paid a lot, but he learned something. So he learned to keep your identity secret. Play your cards very close to your chest. Don't trust anybody, because everybody you let in, you're risking you're putting them in danger. So he learned that one. He lost his aunt, and he learned that with great power comes great responsibility. It's an origin story. He ends up poor, which is how Spider-Man needs to be. Spider-Man needs to be poor because it makes things funnier. One of my favorite things about Spider-Man 2 is Spider-Man dealing with not having money. It's hysterical, and at least I really appreciate it. So he loses his love, he loses his best friend, he loses basically every single person that's ever known him. But what he comes out on the other side is things that, first off, he maintained, like his heart, that you can save people, like the foundation that you can save even the worst of the worst, which may end up biting him back in the ass. We won't know. And he learned, to be independent, to keep the value of secrecy. So, like I said, I love the ending. I love the movie. I love everything in general. The only thing that feels kind of off is that this kind of felt like a wrap up to the whole Tom Holland part of the story, and it sucks. Oh, what's happening? Where is it? Where are you? Yeah. The only thing that sucks is that this kind of feels like a. The only thing that sucks is that it kind of feels like the wrap up to the Tom Holland story, because now he's going into secrecy now. He's going into anonymity or whatever. And it's all right. It's Marvel hedging their bets of like, oh, all right, so maybe we won't have Spider-Man anymore or whatever. I don't like it. Just bet on Spider-Man. Just go ahead and bet on Spider-Man. Also, another thing that I loved about this movie, Matt fucking Murdock. Matt freaking Murdock is in the movie. I almost forgot. I can't believe I almost didn't mention Matt Murdock. I'm so pissed that I did not bring my Daredevil hat. I love this particular Matt Murdock. I can't wait for him to actually do stuff in the MCU. I hope they continue the Netflix storyline, which is fantastic. I hope he actually does stuff with Spider-Man. That'd be great. Like the heroes who are actually in the streets of New York City. That'd be fantastic. That'd be phenomenal. But yeah, like I said, overall, love the movie. Extremely fun. I might be on a high right now. Afterwards, when I watch it a second time, I'll be like, oh, okay, this was a mistake, or whatever. But even so, even if there was the high it gives you, like the happiness, the emotions that you feel watching the movie are so good that doesn't even matter. At least it made me overlook it. So, like I said, highly recommend it. Highly enjoyable. Extremely good film. Extremely well made. Fun. Like I said, best thing I could say, it's more than worth your money. So, on that note, that's a good place to stop. As always, any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can find me at Dario SDW and at Super Dario. Well, let me just get this audio here real fixed. All right, there you go. If you want to join me on the live stream and the chat and stuff like that, you can do that at Super Dario World on YouTube and on Twitch, 10 a.m. ish. Like I said, this one was different because I was going to too many spoilers. I didn't want to risk it. So that's it for today. As always, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.